Next, let's think about how poets use imagery to connect with our sense of hearing. It might not seem as obvious or as clear as like our sense of sight. As you're reading something, usually you feel like you have pictures, you can imagine what's going on. But part of that imagery is also imagining what you'd hear, what sounds are being described. So you can be asking yourself while you're reading the poem or after you've read the poem, what sounds does the poet create? Like with visuals, a lot of this comes from really descriptive, connotative words, like some strong word choice. I got a list here. A few that stood out to me were something like the word bellow. Bellow is such a strong descriptive word. It's loud, but it also evokes kind of like a really deep baritone tone, like a really low bellow. It's loud, but it's bellowing, and maybe like there's almost an echo to it. Something like murmur is kind of like a mumbly whisper. Or if a sound is shrill, it has that sharp, piercing quality. So again, we're looking for really descriptive, connotative words that connect with our sense of hearing. If we look at this poem, November Night by Adelaide Crapsey, um, it mostly relies on our sense of hearing. She writes, listen, with faint, dry sound like steps of passing ghosts, the leaves, frost crisped, break from the trees and fall. So as I read through there, as we look at it again for a second here, think about what words stand out as really sound words, really evocative, descriptive sound words. So again, she says, listen with faint, dry sound like steps of passing ghosts. The leaves, frost crisped, break from the trees and fall. I've highlighted a couple that really stand out to me. The most obvious one is this faint, dry sound. It has the word sound right in the sentence. Um, and as she's describing this faint, dry sound, she uses a simile to kind of, some figurative language, a simile to help describe that more clearly. What is this faint, dry sound? It's similar to, if we can imagine, it's like the steps of passing ghosts, which to me, it wants like to compare it to a ghost stepping. It's figurative, it's not literal, but it has like a very soft kind of like almost like not even there kind of sound. Like it's barely audible, if even audible. To continue that description, says the sound is it's frost crisped. So it's like a crisp crunch, like like when there's just like a layer of frost on something and it has that little crackle to it. Um, she says the leaves break from the trees and fall. I think ultimately what she's trying to describe here is that last sentence, that the sound of like a single leaf in fall, like it's a November night. Imagine sitting there at night and hearing a single leaf like separate from the branch it's connected to. It's this faint, dry sound. And to go back to the simile about passing ghosts, like a ghost is something that's passed on. It has this connotation of death to it. And I think she's trying to connect that to this like dry November leaf falling off a tree. There's kind of that like past life, not alive um, connection to it. And her description is just the sound of a single leaf just like how would you describe that sound of a leaf detaching? She says it's faint, dry, like the steps of a passing ghost, and frost crisped. So again, the whole point of this poem, I think, is really to get to this point of trying to describe the sound of a leaf separating from a tree. And her main goal here is to create, using imagery and descriptive language, that sound for the reader. So that's a poem that really makes use of imagery that tries to connect to our sense of hearing.